Welcome to the webinar on how young is too young. So I'm super excited to talk to you and show you about how many amazing pieces of technology can be used with young children and when to get started. This actually started because I'm a communication device evaluator and trainer in the state of Arizona. I'm a Washington native, but and we would get to communication device evaluations, and we would come in and there would be a really complicated body in front of us, and we would say, you know, how do they access switches? And parents would say, what's a switch? And we would do them in the schools, and we would say, you know, how are they communicating right now? And they say, well, nothing, that's why you're here. And the child's 8 years old, and we're trying to figure out, how did you receive early intervention? How did you go to preschool? How did you get through years of school and with no real system, with no understanding of how you access your world, with no great alternative access method? And what's a switch should not be a thing when you're 8 years old and you have a body that's hard. So we really were motivated to talk about it. And we found that a lot of people said, well, we were waiting. And it's an interesting little fine line. For we were waiting, we waited too long. So let's talk about how young is too young. And so we don't fall into that trap of waiting for something magical to happen, because that's not exactly how it works. So this little 9-month-old is putting his lips on a photo of a bottle. And so he is showing us that he understands that symbols have meaning. That's typical cognition, typical vision, and he's going for it. I tested this out. That was the research when I was in school, which was ages ago, that said that by 8 to 9 months, kids know that pictures have meaning. I threw up some pecs because I'm a dorky speech pathologist. My daughter crawled, literally, because she couldn't walk then, crawled over, peeled off bubbles, crawled back and handed it to me. I did not model this behavior. I did not do anything about it. I just put up pecs on a board at her level that she could access, and she did it. And so this is what we know about normal cognition. So why aren't we giving them opportunities then? Why aren't we starting at 8 months? And a lot of the times we're not starting at 8 months because we're not sure about vision, we're not sure about cognition, and we're not sure about access. But waiting does not actually improve any of those things. Only teaching improves those areas. So sometimes people say, well, I don't want to give them a crutch. They're so young. I'm sure they'll learn words. Listen, my daughter was typical. She had maybe 1 or 2 words, and I was using pictures, and she could say way more with the pictures than she could. As soon as she could talk, talking's easier than crawling over to a board with pictures. Just because you give them an alternative way to speak doesn't mean speech is ever hindered, and we know that through research, and we just need to be real good advocates of that truth. Just like kids will not get lazy, and they're not going to get lazy. I've never met a lazy kid, actually. I've met kids that have not been given opportunities. I've met kids that passivity has been enforced, but never lazy. They want to walk, they want to talk, and they're going to do what they can to get there. Sign language is better, and sometimes it is, and sometimes it's better for a lot of reasons, but it still continues to be something that not everyone speaks and knows. And so, again, I think total communication is the best policy. I think you do sign language. I think there's lots of benefits of putting motor together. I think a lot of our kids can't do that. A lot of our kids with complicated bodies have very modified signs of that. They haven't mastered PECS yet. This has been a prerequisite in years past. They should show you that pictures have meaning. Honestly, we've seen a lot of kids that they don't know that the pictures have meaning until when they touch the picture, it talks. And so it's not a prerequisite to do PECS to master PECS. It's not even a prerequisite to master 2 and then 4 and then 8. In fact, what people are doing when they're introducing pictures to choices, they're often wanting kids to go, well, they're only at 70% when I give them 2 choices. That to me says that there was a right and there was a wrong answer when given 2 choices. That's how you know it's 70%. And that means you were testing rather than teaching. And also, oftentimes when we have only 2 choices and we're wanting 8 out of 10, they don't want to do any of those things either of those two choices 8 times, no matter what it is. So don't be afraid to move up and to have more choices before some sort of magical mastery level, because that mastery denotes that you have been doing some testing, and we do need to continue to teach. Cognition is too low. That's possible. I have yet to meet a kid whose cognition is too low to do AAC. So I would say that we don't know about cognition yet. So everyone gets an opportunity. So we need to create some experiences. We need to tap into their sensory strength. Again, I'm talking about kids with their complex bodies, and we have to start building favorites. We need to be looking at, is their vision their strength? Is their hearing their strength? Is touch their strength? And work from there. Let's talk about what that means. So if touch is their strength, they may be able to touch a screen. If motor is their strength, movement is a strength, they could possibly do a switch. If vision is a strength, they could do eye gaze. If hearing is their strength, then we need to do switches for the auditory preview, and we'll get into that in a minute. When we are doing switches, we do need to consider a variety of switch sites. Most of the time, when kids have been exposed to switches, they've been exposed to a Big Mac, and they have been exposed to it by what I mean by that is somebody else is picking up their hand and dropping it, or allowing it to fall, or even pressing their hand against the switch, and they're doing what we call hand over hand. Here's the thing about hand over hand. It actually doesn't teach a whole lot, and we don't learn a lot as therapists. So hand over hand means they can physically reach it. If you put the hand on it, the switch, you can see that they can reach it. That's about all hand over hand does. It teaches, if I sit here and do nothing, you'll move my hand for me. And typically, most of my kids with complicated bodies, if they can't touch a screen with a pointer finger or a knuckle or a hand, then they can't touch a switch with a pointer finger or a knuckle or a hand. And so even though your occupational therapist is going to be working on hand movement and using switches for hand, when we're talking about AAC, when we're talking about communication, we want to put the switch at a site that does two things, that is voluntary and repeatable, and the site that does not take away their gaze from their communication. So if their switch requires eye-hand coordination, then their eye is coming off of the screen that they're operating, or coming off of the communication icons in front of them. We'll talk a little bit more, and there's some video in here too. So we need a lot of toys, and we need movement toys, tactile toys, sensory toys, pictures, low-tech boys, single boards, single message buttons, step-by-steps. Setsi actually now has a switch access kit. You can check it out, and it has all of these things in it. It has a variety of switches. It has an iPad. It has vibrating toys. It has single message buttons and step-by-step. So if you want to just check out a kit and try it with 3 or 4 kids in your classroom, that's going to be your fastest way to finding kind of what might be the best fit for your student. So we have to know what they like. I put this in here because it reminds me of that. Oftentimes when I'm doing a parent interview, I will say, what do they like? And sometimes they come up with some pretty amazing things. They like the vacuum cleaner. You know, they like popsicles. They like it when their sister sings. They like explicit rap. I mean, things that you may not know. Other times they say, I don't know. And that means that life is hard, and they've been doing some triage, and food and shelter and health has been priorities, and entertainment has not been at the forefront. Same goes with schools. Sometimes I will go into the school and I will have been in the home, and I'll say, well, you know, they really like vacuum cleaners and hair dryers and things like that. And the school says, well, no, of course I didn't know that. We don't have hair dryers or vacuum cleaners right now. So there are a lot of times one facet of the child's life has kind of figured out a preference, and it requires some nice communication and home to school connection to tap into some of those extreme preferences. And preferences meaning things that they're willing to work hard for. So this is my boy, and he's using a Beams. I don't know if your school has Beams. I'm pretty sure we have a Beams to check out. And so this is the movement that he has. His name is Camden. He has Pelizaeus-Merzbacher. It's a degenerative disease, and he will lose some of this function, but right now this is what he can do. And so I wanted to know what could I put in front of him that would allow him to make that movement functional. I'm going to try to play this video. So that is a break the beam. When he moves his arm across those lights, it plays. So that's another potential way to do a toy without even using a switch at all. That's just the way break the beam works. And Setsi does have beams in the lending library if you want to check that out. I mean, right now, I don't think anything's being checked out due to the coronavirus stuff, because I don't think we're having a hard time figuring out how to best do that. But I know there's other, in a calmer day and time, this would be a super fun thing to check out and try with kids. All right, so we're going to look at switches. This is a basic switch. This is a basic battery interrupter. We have both in the Setsi library, and you can also buy battery interrupters straight on Amazon now. So it's really nice. This is my occupational therapist, Melanie, who has taught me a lot about switches and switch access. And I'm just going to show the video, and then we're going to talk about why this works.
Should we get some more? Yeah, just like that. Whoa! Look at that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. That was a good job, love girl.
Okay, I love that one because for a lot of reasons, but one is that she does not smash the switch against the kid's head. And actually you'll see that happen a lot. And so she's holding it over there. It almost looks like it's going to be too far away from her, but that's because we want to make sure that the movement is intentional and voluntary. So we don't want her to startle and accidentally hit it. We don't want it to be there, and we want it to be on purpose. When she startles, she turns to her right, so the switch is on the left side, so that when she goes to the left, everyone knows she meant to do it. There's no question about if she meant to. And that often happens with these kinds of kiddos, is we wonder if they lucked out. And if the switch is placed in the same position, but far enough away that they can't accidentally hit it, then yes, they did mean to do it. And so they're moving forward already. We're gonna walk through the continuum about how does bubbles turn into communication? How does it become educational relevant? We're gonna move through that pretty quickly. I mean, we move through that within one session. We don't work on hit the switch for bubbles for months and months and months, or even weeks. We hit the switch for bubbles and we go, okay, now you know where your switch is. Now you're gonna hit the switch when you hear the one you wanna do, and we're automatically working on language comprehension within one session. So we have a vibrating toy here. We have, I have a nonprofit, and I'm a co-founder of a nonprofit, and myself and several members of our board put together a derby where we do kind of like, what's it called? I forget what it's called. Anyways, you know, the little derby cars. So this child is learning to hit the switch to make her car go. And then those are water speakers, and water speakers are a great motivator. So sometimes those are speakers that, because they're not special ed, they're just $29.95 at Target. You can put your phone in it, and it actually dances with colored water in front of kids. And so kids with really pretty low vision will gravitate towards music that has that output as well. So just finding things that our kids are going to be willing to move all the way over to that switch to make it fun is what you're looking for. And it's not going to be the same thing every time, and it's certainly not going to not going to last for 8 switch activations. So that 8 out of 10 is not going to be exactly what you're looking for here, but we're going to create those experiences. So build it up, knock it down, do it again, crash. This is something that's I've gotten a ton of miles for, especially in this young population. As young as they can, they begin to be destructive. They want to knock stuff down. When they're in a high chair, they want to throw stuff on the ground. And when you think about typical, that's that higher level cause and effect, where what if I run my arm across this, will it fall? Red solo cups is something I do all the time. And it's amazing, you know, people have this stuff in their homes, and I do home-based a lot because of my medical fragility of my population. And so it's something to think about. Actually, Target has these really cool blocks that have minimums so that they don't have to build it up perfect, but once it's there, it kind of stays until you knock them down. So let's see. I have a little guy here who is on the floor, and he is using eye gaze. And I'm just wanted to show you because I want you to consider all the positions that you see kids in today. They're not in these nice little chairs, and they're not in Riftons, and we don't have pieces of equipment like that in homes, and we certainly don't have it. We don't have adequate seating for all children in all environments. In particular, this little boy, he has a curvature of the spine. They really don't want him sitting in a chair very much. So they said, we want him on the floor, and he's doing some commando crawling, but he can only do the communication through eye gaze. So what am I doing? So this is what this looks like. And I just wanted to knock down a few barriers. If you don't have a child who really can or should be sitting for very long, this is another option. And my student was working with me. That's him there. So
it is a tower. It's a tall tower.
I want blue block.
You want blue? Are we putting one more on top of that?
Here we go,
Oh my
Camden.
goodness.
Here, we'll put it underneath.
Oh my goodness, we're matching
Oh, wow!
the blue. It's so tall, your tower.
Blue block.
the video audio kind of came out of sync, but he's just sitting there up on his elbows and gonna look, and then he's gonna lay back down, and then he's gonna come up and look and make more choices. But we're working with his body, and the younger they are, the more you are playing around with positioning, because they can't stay in a position for very long, or if they are in a position for very long, it's not best for their bodies. So we're working around that as well. Balloons and bubbles, I really like that. Let it go, pop, high, low, big, little. There's a lot of vocabulary that can be taught with these toys. And we know this, and we overuse bubbles to way too old of an age. But when we're on for the purpose of this webinar and talking about how young is too young, you know, think about things that are exciting and normal to be excited about at the ages we're looking at, you know, birth to 5 or so. So here's another little girl. I think she is learning how to find a switch on the other side here.
Oh my goodness.
So she is just stabilizing her shoulders a little bit because she's on her lap. She's holding that switch at the same time. She's going to tap on that switch so that the girl remembers that it's over there, and she can hear where that tap is.
Whoa!
And she's just exploring that switch.
I just had a rainbow bubble. Oh my goodness, wait, she got you.
And her siblings are getting really into it and excited.
Whoa! Oh my goodness.
She's just laying on it.
Stop.
And now she pulls off, and the OT does a nice job. That's stop. That's what stop feels like. That's what stop looks like. That's what stop sounds like. And the language is embedded in that play. Another way to do it is through movement. So a bouncing we will go. Sometimes we'll put kids on on a ball and we're bouncing them. Sometimes we're doing row your boat where we're holding them, we're doing some joint compression. And so when they pick an experience, then they feel what that is. So when they pick spiders, you itsy bitsy spider, and you crawl up their bodies, and you down comes the rain, and then out comes the sun as you scratch their head maybe. So you are giving them tactile experiences or movement experiences through every language opportunity. So do they know what spiders mean? At this age, they may not. They may think that spiders is the itsy bitsy spider song. They may never have seen a live spider. No, nobody's worried about it. If they pick itsy bitsy spider, you're going to do that game. So we're not going to get caught up in the did they mean to or how are they accurate. They're only accurate long after they've learned the vocabulary, and they've only learned the vocabulary through experiences. So we're not saying find the spiders or hit the switch when you hear row your boat. We're having them hear the language, make the selection, experience the language, and do it again. That's how all typical kids get to learn language, and so do ours. Okay, so we're doing choice making. There's some cause and effect. We're going to say I'm going to say something, you're going to react, and there is no wrong answer. And I think I kind of went through that. So we're teaching and not testing. Low-tech eye gaze boards is another opportunity. You can use eye gaze in a form like these pictures. I typically use a black foam board so that there's some higher contrast. I find these clear ones to be a little bit challenging for my visually impaired, but some of my kids can only look at that, only use their eyes for voluntary movement. So that's what we're doing. If you do clear pockets, then you don't even have to laminate or Velcro pictures. I always do from a field of 3 or more because 2 is hard and 50% is not helpful. So I'm always giving them, yes, more, all done, or I don't know, or yes, no, or something different, right? So giving them 3 helps me understand what they're trying to get at. Every once in a while, you'll have a child who has the gross motor skills to touch 4 buttons if they're displaced this way, and that's a place to start. But if you know that their motor skills are not going to refine in any fashion that's adequate for language, we want to encourage them to use the eye gaze boards for just that, for their eyes and their gaze. So this little guy, he is going to make a choice using eye gaze, and he's going to knock stuff down. I'm just going to kind of show you what that looks like. Again, I think he had just turned 3 at this stage.
Here we go. Two, 3, 4, up.
These are those magnet blocks. So he's seeing blocks, he's seeing the picture of blocks, he's experiencing what happens when he gets blocks, and he's using PECs. Oh, sorry, let me see. So single message buttons, I use talking points from inclusive technology, but not all, none of them are, this is not exclusionary, meaning these aren't the only ones on the market. I just found that they're pretty good for the quality of the recording and the cost. And we have these for checkout as well. So sometimes I start something with like, I love you, because I need mom and dad buy-in on some of the stuff. Sometimes around Halloween, which is shortly after school has started for you all, I'll have a button that says trick or treat. And so they're going to take that out for trick or treating. And you say, and by the way, she's using her switch at school by turning to her right. So make sure you put the switch on her right temple. And then the family gets to kind of experience that access method. They're called talking buttons. if you go to Inclusive TLC's US website, they used to be a learning resource out of Amazon, and Amazon stopped selling them. And then there's single message buttons all over Amazon, recordable buttons. Some of them are just really, frankly, hard. That you have to have a lot of pressure to activate them. And so I find that sometimes is not a viable access method for my kids. So I like these because they're sensitive. So these single message buttons can be something really quickly, like, okay, we're going to count to 10, and then you're going to say, and if you look in the chat, Sari has put up the link to that item. Thanks, Sari. So even little things like turn the page, I'm gonna wait them out until they turn the page, and then we continue with the book if they're really big book kids. You can count to 10, and then the kiddo says, ready or not, here we come. And then you're going to go find the siblings that are hiding, the buddy that's coming, that's hiding. You can do hide and seek that way. Any carrier phrase, like the hungry caterpillar, but he was still hungry. Things like that keeps things going. There's timing that comes with this. And there's, I say something and you react. And that's what communication looks like with our very young children. So 2 messages obviously requires 2 switch sites, and 2 switch sites are ultimately what's required for power mobility. It's also ultimately also what's required for a communication device, in that you're listening to the one you want. Bubbles, songs, hugs from mom. Bubbles, songs, hugs from mom. You hear the one you want, you click, I want hugs from mom. So 2 sites is needed to self-pace your own communication device, and 2 sites are needed to turn and go straight in a powered chair. So if you have a complicated body and you have 2 sites, you're going to get a lot more out of it. Again, so if you have head movement, you do have 2 sites, because you have 1 and you have 2 with really what only looks like 1 movement. Each concept can be taught individually, so you can teach no is this way and yes is this way, or yes is whatever way, which way you want to do it. And you can teach that this button's going to be more, and this is going to be all done, or this is going to be yes, or this is going to be no, or this is going to be my turn, or this is going to be your turn, however you want to do it. But that's how there's a lot of reasons behind establishing 2 single message, using 2 single message buttons to establish 2 switch access, because that's where they're really going to start accessing their world. This is an example of how I do this with yes and no. Oops. This is the same girl in 3 different videos, and we're going to just kind of show you how this goes.
You did. I know. I came 2 hours early. How about, did you have a good sleep? No. I know. So let's see, we can play or we can read a book. So, would you like to read a story? Oh, okay. Now, would you like to read the book that I brought, or a choice from your library? So, would you like to read one of your books? Oh, you would. Okay, so let me get your device out, and we'll let you pick your favorite. Okay? Does that sound good?
Oh, look at she put her hand way up. Okay, I'm going to stop it now. Pause it.
Okay. I love this video for lots of reasons. One, the home nurse is taking the video, and oftentimes when I'm there, she is, charting and doing other things. And so for me to have her video makes her actually pay attention. Like, do you know that she can do this and that she's reliable? And so I said, did you have a good sleep? I had seen a note that she had a bad night and mom wasn't sure how much she was going to do for me. So I asked her, did you have a good sleep? She doesn't know. I know that mom doesn't think she had a good night. So when she says, no, I didn't have good sleep, I said, oh, that's a bummer. So I know that that's right. So I'm actually testing her because I know that answer. But since she doesn't know, I know the answer. And if I were to say, did you have a good sleep? And she said yes, then she says yes. Did she mean to hit that? It doesn't even matter. Meaning she needs to know that what she says I take as truth. When I touch the button, they respond. When I say the words, they respond to my words. My words matter. If I do it inaccurately, then they don't have the right information. She's excellent at this. She is 3 in the video, but we learned this at age 2. Here she is at age 2, and she is applying to switch sites to make choices.
All right, we're all done swinging. Let's see what our choices are, honey.
Car wash,
Think about it.
water speakers, swing.
What a swing. Good job.
If you have an iPad in your classroom, Go Talk Light allows you to do 5 pages for free, so you don't even have to submit a PO to have this. Maybe through your tech department, you need permission. But if you have Go Talk, you have 5 pages, and it does auditory preview. You can set this up. And if you check out the Switch Access Kit from SETC, there's an iPad with a switch interface and modular hoses that are holding those switches and a whole bunch of options there that allow you to do just that experience. Have her listen to her choices. You can tell her vision is very poor and she's actually not looking at the screen, but her eyes are letting you know when she's processing information. And I love those, but all those pieces. And then we instantly, where I don't know if this looks like by the close, this is not the same day, but all of this could easily happen in the same day. She's using those same switch sites to drive her chair.
Gonna go get bubbles?
I play basketball.
Dad wants to shoot some hoops. Oh, okay, bubbles. We're going. The swing. Basketball. I just said it. All right, Dad has to come play basketball with us. Basketball. Yes, ma'am. Good girl.
So basically she's simulating everything that we're already doing. So she is, as the girl is hitting the switch and turning her chair, she's giving her an auditory preview. You're facing the bubbles. You're facing the swing. When she says basketball, that means you're facing basketball. The girl goes to the other side, which is select, and drives straight to the basketball. So we're using the same language concept. One switch is for my choices, which on the chair is turn. And one switch is my select, which on the chair is go straight forward. And you're going to get right to what we just said you're facing, because she doesn't have the distance vision to know that the basketball hoop is over there. She actually is 3. She passed her power wheelchair test and has her own power chair. That's preschool now. So is she 1 in a million? Of course she is. All of them are. A lot of times people say, well, I mean, you showed us a lot of pictures of there's that one amazing kid, and you know what, my kid sleeps a lot, my kid has seizures, so does she. Listen, I'm not taking pictures of kids that are sleeping, and I'm not taking video and showing them to you of kids having seizures, but she has all of that. We just have to catch our teachable moments. And I want to pace myself because I have a lot on this class. Here's another little guy. Oh, I know why I wanted to show you that. Okay, so I don't have a video. I'm just showing you that he has a proximity switch, and you can kind of see it. It's that little candy corn by his arm. So he gets close to a switch by lifting his arm, and then the other movement is his head movement. So not all of our kids are using to switch with the hand. He pretty much cannot move his head to the right, so he can come center and he can go left. So we had to find a second switch access method for him, and he will drive doing that exact thing. Another thing I want to just have you grab out, whenever we're back actually in educational settings, and you actually can rifle through and get your to some of this equipment, pull out your step-by-step. I've had a love-hate relationship with step-by-step for the last 20 years, because it's really literally been out, I think, that long. And I used to think they were okay, and then I thought, no, they're dumb, because they're never the kids' language. They're always somebody else is just putting it on there, and it's just participation, and we need a higher bar than that. And now I've swung back around, and it all depends on how you set it up. So you can set it up with, my name is Houston and I'm 4 years old, and how old are you? And then you put them in a situation where they hit the switch to make the conversation go. And the thing is that they're learning with the step-by-step is, I say something and I don't hit my switch again until you've responded to me. They're learning some of those conversational pieces that we don't even learn on high tech sometimes. Sometimes high tech, they're just going, they're finding that they want their iPad, right? They're using their device to ask for their iPad, and it's over. It's not a conversation. Whereas step-by-steps can actually work on turn taking, it can work on timing, it can work on, I say something, you say something. Oftentimes I use the step-by-step to create that anticipatory language, like the itsy bitsy spider went up the water spout, and then I wait, and I can wait up to 3 minutes before I cloud the airways, or even create interference, before they'll go, man, she is not doing anything unless I hit the switch again. And then she hits the switch, and down came the rain, and then I'm all over her again, massaging her, or whatever. But I will use songs, anticipatory songs, where they know they've heard the song before, they know it. And they are realizing that if I don't hit the switch, she's not doing anything. I'm in control. And that's a big deal, being in control. And if they do it too fast, then they miss part of the motions of that song. So all of it's embedded in the activity without needing to clutter the airways with a lot of instruction. We have step-by-steps that can be checked out as well when school's back in session. Personal narratives. Sometimes it'll be like, this is the home to school connection that I use all the time. My kids that have eye gaze devices, it's unrealistic to often have preschool teachers like go in and do a home to school, like what was your day like, or anything like that. Whereas step-by-step is pretty easy. Hey, do you want to hear about my day? We worked on, we did a unit on polar bears. We made snowballs out of tissue paper. Do you want to do that at home? Whatever happened at school, and it creates a conversation. And it's a great way for children to participate in the round table that happens at dinner on what happened in your day and that kind of thing. Simon Says, red light, green light, things like that, where they control other children. Also a huge hit. Asking and answering questions, songs. I often will teach kids, like they'll have goals, like that they'll identify the letters in their name. And so, I was doing one the other day where he had to hit the switch in the step-by-step saying AIDAN to spell his name for bingo. And you can also do counting. So I'm gonna have you count to 10, and then we're gonna zoom over and see if we can find him under the bed, or we can find where dad went to go hide, or where the paraeducator went, or whatever, home or school. So anticipatory language, but that's set up with a lot of purpose, makes that the biggest deal is that their language is controlling the environment. And our youngest kids need to recognize that words control the environment, and this is how my words happen. that my words happen through my body movements, and all of that is taught through experiences and not through verbal instruction. And these are little ones, guys. These are, I think this one is 11 months old.
That was happening. There you go. Look at you. Oh my goodness.
This is a kid who does not hold his head up very much, but he sure does when he knows if my head is up, I drive my car.
Just like that.
She is 13 months old.
Just like that.
I mean, that chair doesn't fit her at all. We borrowed a chair for the week. And this occupational therapist is doing a super nice job waiting her out. She's just gonna sit there and go.
It's your hair. It's your hair. Your hair there. It wasn't positioned well. She's left it. Good stopping. Look at you. Yep, just like that. You were making that go. Good girl. You know so many things for us to say yes, and that makes the chair turn. We can go ring around the rosy.
So this is an example of a couple of things. One, it simulates actually normal independent mobility, which means that when kids are learning to walk, they stand, they pull the stand, and then they fall. They pull the stand and they take one step and then they fall. They don't get very far. This girl is not physically moving very far in this room. She's hitting the switch, she's moving one step, and then she's coming off the switch and saying and figuring out, did I even go anywhere? It matches how we actually learn independent mobility. And the same goes with anytime you're doing AAC with switches. They hit a switch, it says a word, they experience the language, they do it a couple of times, then they're over it. Just like if a kid's saying ba 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 and you're doing bubbles, and then they're over it, then they're doing ma ma ma, and you've decided ma 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 means mommy. So every time she says ma ma, I'm going to come in and give her kisses. So she starts to say mommy. We attach meaning to all kinds of things that young children do. We don't expect them to want to do it all day long or a whole bunch of times. We don't test that information. And so what we're doing with our very youngest kids in assistive technology is we're allowing typical development, and we're reminding ourselves not to require more than what typically developing children require or what typical development learning looks like. So this little one, she is 1 year old. She's doing eye gaze. I have so much video of her now since I first created this class of all the things she could do. You'd be absolutely shocked. At age 2, she has, so this is age 1, and she has 4 choices to start. I think at age 2, I think we had 28 on there, and she's linking up to 4 pages at age 2. Okay, oops, let me come back here.
Here's some.
Here's some. There was a mommy, had a baby, and Kira was her name. Oh, Kate.
So here's mom, and she's a teacher. She has a child with significant special needs. Her child's 1, and we don't know what her strengths are going to be. They don't know enough about her chromosomal abnormality to know if her vision is going to be her long-term strength, if her hearing is going to be a strength at some point, if she's going to ever hold her head up. She is trach, she's bent at night. There's a lot of complications here. But her cognition is proving to be right on track as we move forward. Like I said, at age 2, she had 28 buttons on there, was making sentences and linking pages. And so mom is just responding. All we told mom to do was give her vocabulary of what you think she likes. And every time she makes choices, respond. And she has blossomed into a very bossy communicator in a short period of time. So that is kind of what I have for How Young is Too Young, and all of the videos that I wanted to show you of very young children. So if, at this point, if you have a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, an 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and somebody's saying, well, we're waiting to try this because they're just not ready, that's your first clue that you might be on the wrong track, because waiting actually teaches nothing. Only teaching teaches something. I'm going to stop the video, so if you have questions or anything that you want to say that's not recorded, you can feel free to do that. So let me figure that out.